That's $1 million piece right there. That piece right there, guys, will make you a lot of money and make your life easier.
Oh my goodness, everyone, thank you so much for being here today with the community. We have a very special presentation today because our industry has done some changing on us lately. Things have moved around. And what's really exciting is that there is a way to get out in front of this. It's not the sky is falling, but you have to gain a little bit more capacity, some strength in your skill set in order to be able to navigate what happens next. But here's what's fun about moments of differentiation in any marketplace. They separate people who understand how to operate in the new reality from the people who don't. So you guys are here today. You win. Woohoo! You're going to go to number one. And I love that. All right. And we have one of my best friends and also mentors, John Sellers, here to show us how he's been doing this for years, by the way. This is not new. And so we're going to understand how to do that. But we're going to set the context for this because for a lot of agents, they weren't trained to do this at the beginning. I know many of us, it's like, oh man, I'm doing what? And so this could feel like a big change, but today we're going to learn how to do it correctly. And I couldn't be more thrilled to welcome to the stage, John Sellers. How you doing, my man?
Hey, guys. Thanks, Jeff. So, guys, what this presentation today is, I'd like to get a feedback on how many people actually do a buyer presentation with people before they show them houses.
I
Raise your hand.
do.
Okay. What I find is that most agents don't. Most people get a sign call and they just go out and show houses. And when you do that, it becomes very challenging to actually get a buyer broker signed when you meet with them because you're not establishing authority. You're not establishing credibility. You're just trying to sell them on why they should work with you in those few couple moments you have. Now, again, I just have a theory about how I've went about it. This isn't right. It's just the way it's worked for me. And when we do this presentation today, some pieces you're going to take, some people you don't like. Be careful if you feel uncomfortable with it and whether you say no about it just because you feel uncomfortable versus it being a really solid idea. Because sometimes when we find something that we wrap, oh, I couldn't do that, or that's bad, it's sometimes because it's just out of our comfort zone, but it might be actually what we need to do. And so to give you some back on this, guys, I started in real estate in 1991. I'm old, right? I started at 15. But there was no buyer broker in 1991, guys. Everybody represented the seller. Can you imagine that? And so 2 years later, all of a sudden we got buyer broker. And I can remember when I got that first buyer that I was working with, and then I get a call that they bought a house without me. Everybody's been in real estate has had that happen. If you haven't sold enough houses or you're using a buyer broker properly. And I realized, wow. And I remember I went to one of the old gals in the office at that point. She was my age now, 60. And she's like, yeah, you got to start figuring out how to have a presentation and how to lock people down and show the value to them. So we've just kind of assimilated that over time. And so why is buyer broker critical? So it becomes a natural process if you're doing a good presentation to where it makes sense to them. And that's what I hope I'm going to show you all today. I might be a little rough. We're going to go ahead and I might stop a little bit during it to add a little context on a few things. And this probably should take, 45 minutes to an hour. So my philosophy, guys, is that when somebody called me on a sign, I did not go home and show houses. 99% of the time. Now, occasionally, if I couldn't close them for a meeting and it was right around the corner from me, I might go do that, but almost never. Because what I was trying to do was differentiate myself. And we're waiting for Jason and Jen. Jeff and Lexi were going to be my potential clients, but Lexi had something come up and she couldn't be here. So we're waiting for Jen and Jason to come in. So they should be here any minute now. But I want to walk you through this. So I had a little bit of a conversation with people when somebody called on the phone. And they might say to me, hey, I want to go look at this house. And my first question would be, great, I'm John, who are you? Right? And get that name. Great, so what house were you looking to look at? Oh, 123 Main Street. That's fantastic. So, hey, Liz, are you a really busy person? So role play with me, Liz.
Okay, sure.
Are you a really busy person?
Yes, I am.
And I'm guessing, do you like to waste time?
No, no,
Yeah. Do you
I can
know
afford.
that 90, do you know like 99% of the time when somebody calls and goes and looks at a house, they never buy that house? Were you aware of that?
Actually, I wasn't.
Yeah. So almost never does somebody buy that house. It ends up just being a waste of time. So let me ask you this, is if there was a way for us to save you at least 20 hours in the home buying process, make sure you didn't buy a lemon, make sure that you got the best rates and terms, and you can close in the time frame you want and get a great house, would that be worth an investment of 20 to 30 minutes of your time?
I suppose so. I suppose so.
Yeah.
What does it cost me?
Yeah, it doesn't cost you anything. So what we found, Liz, is that most agents, when you call, they're just so happy to go get a client, they just run out crazy. And that's why most people have a bad experience in real estate. What I've learned is there's a process, and if people go through that process, they win. What do you do for a living, Liz?
I'm a stay-at-home mom. My husband works.
Really, that's great. So I imagine you have a process that you go through every day for to make things run smoothly, don't you?
Sure.
And what happens when that process gets broken?
It gets stressful.
Your life gets crazy, right? The
Right.
same thing, most real estate agents don't have a process. What we've learned is there's a process. If we take these steps and we go in order, our clients end up winning. Do you like winning, Liz?
I do. I want my
Yeah.
family to win. Yeah.
So let's do this if it makes sense. Let's go ahead and schedule a 20, 30-minute meeting. We'll get together. And then what we'll do after that, we'll go out, we'll set the stage, and then we'll go out and look at that house plus three or four others so your time could be used most effectively. Does that work for you?
Well, what if that house is gone? Like, I want to go see it right now.
Yeah, so we can go look at it tomorrow. Makes sense. But where are you at in the process, Liz? We want to make sure. How many houses have you looked at so far, Liz?
Um, a few of them. I just keep calling Zillow. You're the
Yeah.
first person that is making me want to sit down and do
Yeah,
this
because
on my own.
you've already wasted a lot of time because half the time on Zillow they're already gone.
It's true.
So I
It's
could
true.
actually meet with you guys today if you wanted to. I've got some time about 3 o'clock, and then we go look at that house and a few others to make sure that you really see what's out there. Make sense to
Oh,
you?
okay, that makes sense.
Let's do that. So,
Okay.
guys, that terminology right there, I can tell you it closes people and it gets people in the office because what you're doing is you're setting a differentiation. People don't call a doctor and expect to get in right away. They don't expect, and if we want to be professionals, we act to it. And that idea of saying, do you want to win? Are you a busy person? That ties people in. The other is, do you have a process of where you work? And everybody does. And people say, if you've ever worked with doctors, they can be the hardest to nail down. But guess what? I do that thing with process. Do you guys have a process? Is that set up for you or the client? What's set up with the client? Is it set up for you too? Yes. So what happens when that doesn't happen? Does the client lose and do you lose? Yeah. We don't really serve people at the highest level. That's why we've set this up because most people are not happy with the real estate experience. We've learned that if we can't do the process right, we're not going to start because I want my clients to win and I want referrals. Does that make sense to you, Liz? So I'm not just take pieces of this, guys, and think through it and realize that if I was able to close most people to get to an appointment, because realize how many times when you're chasing it, when you're running around showing houses to the first person that calls, that's a challenging client to you. You might have one of those wonderful personalities that locks everybody in, but y'all know I don't. So I had to figure out a different process, right? So let's set the stage here. Jace, Jen, thank you. You can unmute yourselves. So we're going to pretend that they're actually in my office face to face. But today I am in Cabo where it's sunny, and the most of you are where it's really cold and ugly. So I apologize for y'all. But we should have more turnout today since everyone's stuck in their house. So here's the deal. They've been referred to me. Um, they're living in a town where, and they'll explain it to you, but they live in Medford. They've been here about 6 months. They've bought one house before, sold one house. Um, and those are the basics. So we're going to go ahead and rock through this. I may stop and add a few commentary through the middle of it. I may skip. I had to write notes for myself. I was a little nervous to make sure I take my path right. It's not quite off my tongue like it used to be. But again, what I want to really say, guys, is you may have not even what I just said about that terminology of setting appointments with people, that might have felt uncomfortable for you. But I can tell you it works. In my best year was I did 54 buyers by myself. Actually, it was 50 buyers. I only had 54 people in my car, and I only worked 3 Sundays. So it works when when you've done this presentation right, what you'll find is people will make decisions faster. They will trust you at a higher level, and they will refer you more people because they feel that you're professional and you set the stage. All right. So let's go ahead and rock here. So Jen, Jace, you're in my office. So, hey guys, it's so nice to meet you.
Hey, John, nice to meet you.
Meet you.
Jeff, I need to make sure I get my view right. Let me just change it here. Okay. Awesome. Well, hey guys, I want to thank you so much for coming to my office. I really appreciate you taking the time and coming here, and I feel really honored. And I just, I just, after you called me and said you were referred by Mary, I reached out to Mary, and she had nothing but great things to say about you guys. Like, you guys have known her a long time. And she just said wonderful things. She's a great client. It was so wonderful. I mean, she's probably more like a friend now because I've helped her with 2 or 3 houses now, and we check in, and her and Joe, they're just awesome. So, hey, let me ask you this. What did Mary say about me?
Well, she said when we told her we were looking for a house, she said that you are the only one she'll work with. That we can make sure that we're in good hands when we work with you. So obviously that's why we're here. We just take her recommendation because she's a good friend of ours too. So,
Wow, that is awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, I work so hard to try and take care of people in a way that they could refer me because, most agents are busy cold calling or spending money on Zillow, and they really can't take care of their clients because there's so much time prospecting. What I found, if I take care of my clients really well and I encourage them, then they end up referring me people, and then I can really focus on what your needs rather than trying to chase the next sign call. Make sense?
absolutely.
Yeah. So, here's this little book that I put together. And guys, what I do on this is I've actually got a buyer book that I put together. It's just a binder. And so I'll stick back in. So, hey, here's the binder, as if I'm handing it to you guys. And guys, did I spell your names correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay, that's awesome. So here's what's in this binder for you. One, there's a lot of glossary of terms because there's a lot of terms that we might use, and I'll be careful trying not to use too many acronyms that, don't make sense. The other is there's actually recommendations. So who are the escrow people that I recommend? Who are the mortgage people? We'll talk more about that as we go. Who are the maybe some fix-it guys that can help you fix up some things? Because typically when you buy a house, there's a few things you might want to do. I've also put the contract in here, plus some standard addendums, because I want you to be able to review this contract before we write an offer. And if you feel you need to take it to an attorney or something like look at that, we want to have that looked at before you go to write an offer. Okay. Now, what I can tell you is this contract's pretty boilerplate, and we fill in the blanks that don't make sense to you, even though it's a lot of pages now. When I started selling real estate, guys, 30 years ago, it was 3 pages. Now it's like 12. And it still accomplishes the same things. And then the other in here, you'll see that you can keep, there's some pouches where you can keep your receipts, and you can keep also documentation that you choose to. Now, you may be just to scan this all and put it in your computer, but sometimes people like a hard copy. Does this work for you?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Guys, why do I give a buyer book? Some people say, why don't I email everything? If you read Cialdini's book on influence, there's one of the laws is reciprocity. And it's a very powerful law that says once you give something to somebody, they feel more obligated and they feel more connected. That's why if you ever go to other countries, a lot of times they want to get you to sit down and have tea, especially if you go to most places, right? They want to give you something because you feel obligated. If you're old enough, you remember the Hare Krishnas. They wanted to hand you that little thing because they knew if you did that, as Americans, we felt guilty not responding. And that's why Liz, I'll let you comment on this, but let me come back to, so there's done some studies where they actually watched people and they said, they took them into the driver's ed course. I mean, like if you guys got a ticket and you had to go to the driver's course, and they walked in and somebody said, you know what, I'd like you to, hey, my kid's, raising money. Would you give some money? And they went through everybody. Not that many people gave. The next day they came in and they bought waters or a Coca-Cola at Costco that cost 33 cents and they handed it out to everybody. The amount they contributed went through the roof because people will respond not at the same level that you do. So we want to think about this as when we're referring people, when we get referred, we don't have to buy them $100 gifts. We get them a card right away. So again, watch what I did. First, I did what they call the triangle of trust. And what that means is I want to go back and talk about Mary that referred me. I want to tell how great she was. And I want to reaffirm that we have this three-way connection, because if I trust Mary and I like Mary and they like Mary and trust, they're going to trust me at a higher level. So it's called the triangle of trust. The other is with Mary, as soon as Mary sends that referral, whether that client turns into whether the new person turns into a client or not, I'm going to be sending Mary a thank you card and a small gift. What could that gift be? It used to be a $5 Starbucks. You can't even get a Starbucks for $5 anymore. So it could be just a $10 Starbucks card. And again, what does that do with Mary? It's creating that she wants to keep. So I'm encouraging her for the action of referring. I do not want her to try to qualify people. I want her just to keep referring, and whether they buy or not, I'm going to call and tell her what happened. I'm going to keep her in. When they close, I'm going to tell her. I might send her a little nicer gift when they actually close. But again, it's encouraging somebody that's had an action that you want to keep doing it. And the other is I'm going to tell you is that is why when I talk to people about building a referral business, you need to look through your clients and see who's already referred you, because the people that referred you are more likely to refer you again. And those are the ones you want to be spending the most time with. Liz, do you have a comment? Can't hear you, hon.
I thought I had switched my little space bar in order to let me unmute. Sorry about that. So when you were talking about the philosophy that somebody gives you something, they feel committed to it. It made me think of the mailer I got once where they gave me $1 bill. They're like, would you mind filling out this survey? Guess what I did? Like I filled out the survey, and I think I've gotten one even with a penny before, right? So I think you're absolutely right.
It's 100% true. And Americans, more than most countries, Americans, for some reason, are the most susceptible to it. And so we need to work with what's true. And are we trying to manipulate people? No, I don't look at it that way. I'm just trying to create trust so I can serve somebody at the highest level, because I know the more trust I have with somebody, the easier the transaction is going to be, and the more I'm going to be able to serve them at a higher level. Now, I could use that in a manipulative way to take advantage of people. That's not what we're doing it for. So it could be the wrong way if you choose to, but if you're doing it ethically, that's how it works. Okay, so let's go to the next step. So I've handed the book out, guys. We kind of cruised through it real quick. Hey, guys, so when we're done today, and this should take us, 30 to 45 minutes, and then we're going to go look at those houses we talked about. You sent me a few that you want to look at, but you're really going to have three options when we get done today. One is, hey, it might not be the right time for you to buy. I've actually had people, and when you share with what you're looking and we talk about the market, it might not be the right time. The others, you might get done and say, I don't really like you, John. I don't want to work with you. And it happens once in a while, not very often, but it's your choice. And the others, when we get done, you're going to go, heck yes, we want to work with you, John. And that's what I'm hoping we accomplish today. And I share that with you. Make sense, guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things that I've learned is that the more I understand what people's motivations are and who they are, the more likely I'm going to be able to serve them at the highest level. Because, we're looking to buy you a home, right? We're not trying to just get a house. We're trying to get a home. And that has personality, just like your personality. So I'd like to get to know you guys a little bit more. Can you share a little bit about yourselves? And then we're going to get into the buying process, but could you share a little bit about, what your story is, how you ended up in Medford now, where you lived before, if you've bought houses before, great. How long have you been married? Have you have kids? Just if we could take a few minutes, it would really help me. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll start off. I'm in IT. I've been in IT for about 7 years. We met and got married about 12 years ago. And, while she was working full time, while I was going to school to go into IT, and we bought a house in California, and then we sold it, and we moved here to Medford for employment, for another job. And we also kind of wanted to just, move into Oregon. It's very beautiful here. And then, just kind of made our way here. Now we're kind of looking around, seeing what we have, if this is going to be the right place for us. So that's a little bit about me and us, and she can share about herself.
So any kids, guys? Do you have kids?
Yes, yeah. We have a lot of kids. We have 9 kids. We have 8 boys, and we have 1 baby girl. And now I'm exhausted from saying that, so I'll let her take over with.
So how old is the oldest? And you tell me you got a baby. How old's the oldest, and how old's the youngest?
32 is the oldest.
And the youngest turned 3 yesterday.
Yep.
And how many are going to be living with you guys full time in the apartment?
3, and then three full-time, and then in the summer we'll have 4 to 6 there, throughout the summer.
Now, normally I would just say, could you give me their names? I'm going to write it down. With 9, I'm not going to. You guys are going to have to text me all those names, okay? I like to remember these things. So, Jen, share a little bit more about yourself.
I'm a college administrator. I've been doing that for about 10 years. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Hey, Jace, you need to get in the camera, brother.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. All right. So you've been doing that. So you're over at Southern Oregon now?
Yes.
And what do you actually do as an administrator? What's your job? I like knowing what people do. I'm just a curious person. Sorry.
I make a lot of phone calls and work with a lot of spreadsheets and help with enrollment, things like that.
Oh, wow, wow. What college were you at before this one?
University of California.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So is your plan to stay there a long time now in Oregon? Are you liking the job so far? How's it going?
Yeah, I'm liking the job so far. We have family here, so yeah, we plan to stay for a while.
Awesome. And what do you guys do for fun?
So we hang out with our kids. We recently found out that we like to go ice skating the last few days. So that's been fun for us. We've been doing that with our shoes on.
Yeah.
And we really like to we like to go down into California sometimes, visit with family, and just kind of get outdoors. Not so much outdoors in the woods, but just kind of get out, go to the coast.
We like to travel.
We like to travel.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We wish we were in Mexico right now.
Yeah, you've been anywhere fun lately? Been anywhere fun lately?
Not the last 4 days, but prior to that, we
I think our last trip was to Las Vegas.
yeah, we went to Las Vegas in October. Met some really interesting people out there, if you know what I mean.
Very interesting.
I can tell you what, guys, I've lived here a long time now. So as you're looking, there's a lot of fun things to do in Southern Oregon. Jason, if you're a golfer, we'll have to go. That's my passion. Besides the surfing, as you can see the surfboard I got behind me here. Beach is actually, we'd be together, guys, so I wouldn't have this, but I'm just sharing with you. Beach is about 100 yards outside of that window of surf. So, of course, it's flat right now, unfortunately. Okay, well, that's great, guys. So do you have a preference? Like, are the kids in school now, the 3 you have?
2 of them are in school.
And what grades?
We have 3rd and 8th grade.
Okay, awesome. And then 1 at home with you. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, as we dig into this about buying a house, what I've learned is the more perfect we can be about what you want, so the more clear we can be about what you want, the more likely it is to appear. So it's maybe a little metaphysical, but you know how when you start thinking about a friend and then all of a sudden they call you?
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's something out in the world. So many people think, hey, the more houses I'm going to look at, the more likely it's going to show up. What I've found actually is the more houses you look at, the more confusing it gets. So if we can, and so the idea is if we can get really clear about what you want up front, now I call it building perfect. And when I say perfect, I mean, what would the house look like? What would the location be like? What would the price point be? What would the timing be for you? And if we can build that out, because you've ever seen somebody where they started without a blueprint building a house and then they just kept adding on? How does that actually turn out?
Not well.
Usually not very well, right?
Right.
I've found we may not be able to get perfect, but the closer we can get to that here, the more likely it is going to be appear, and you're going to know it when you see it. Because sometimes in the past, I've seen people where they couldn't get clear about what they wanted. And maybe you had that in the experience before because you'd shared with me on the phone that you'd bought a house and sold a house before. Maybe you had that experience. Like the second house you looked at was the right one, but you weren't really clear on what you wanted. And you didn't really know it was the one you wanted until you looked at the 15th and now it was already sold. You've probably heard of people having that perspective. So let's dig in a little bit. So what I'd like to know is, bedrooms and baths are really pretty simple. And most people say, I want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Well, what I'd like to know is, I don't know, what's your favorite room in your house, Jen?
I think the kitchen and the living room.
So that's probably where you're going to spend, a lot of your time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I like to know is simple as like, if you were washing the dishes, do you want a window over the sink? Would you want it looking out at the front of the street or would you like looking at the back? Right? When you talk about these sorts of things. So I want to get into some nitty gritty. Now, again, that may not be what we can find, but the clearer we are, the better off we are. So why don't you share with me about what you're looking for and where you, some details about it. We can start with the basics if you want, and then we can dig a little deeper. I'm going to take some notes if that's okay. Is it okay if I take some notes, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, please do.
Okay.
And I have to say, the last time that we bought a house that with the agent we're working with, they didn't do any of this. So I'm pretty excited to be sitting down with you and going over this. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
We
So
do things a little bit different.
yeah, I'll tell you things that are important to me. Bedrooms and bathrooms. So 4 bedrooms, 3 full baths would be really ideal. We would do 2.5, but 3 full baths. If we do a 2-story, I'd really like to have a den, an office, or a bedroom downstairs, preferably facing the street because it makes for a nice little office. We do know we want a minimum of 4 bedrooms, but also a minimum of 2,200 square feet. We find that gives us at least the minimum amount of room that we need. You know, preferably brand new or newer construction, like 2015.
What does new mean to you? Yeah.
Yeah, 2015 or newer. However, we're not opposed to something that was maybe built the early 2000s if it's got the right updates. We love the open concept. And I just found out, meeting with you here, that one of my wife's favorite rooms is the kitchen. So I'm pretty excited about that. So those are things that are important to me. And I really don't want anything more than a 1/4 acre. I really, we're at a season of life right now where I don't want to come home and take care of.
Yeah, we don't want lawn maintenance and trees and all that stuff to deal with.
So, Chase, I'm really happy you shared with me, and thank you so much for sharing. But, the truth is, you get the garage, and what Jen wants is probably really going to matter.
Yeah, that's why I talked first, because I figured I'll just get that out of the way. But
I know I love to hear what guys have to say, and I'm joking. I'm not saying that's always the case, but what I've learned is, mom ain't happy, nobody's happy, and women kind of know what they want. So I say, guys, we're going to make sure you get a really good garage and maybe a good backyard. Does that work for you?
That works. That's why I kept saying. That's why I kept saying.
But you know the truth of that, right?
Right. Right.
So Jen, let's talk a little bit for you. Let's add some detail to that.
So I like an open floor plan, like Jason was saying. I want the house to be light and bright. So probably the kitchen, I would want, white cabinets, windows. Yeah. And just high ceilings, like very open and airy.
And when you have a kitchen, do you prefer it to be on the, window looking towards the front of the house, to out back? Does it matter to you?
Not really. No.
And what about countertops? Does it need to be granite? What do you really like? Does it need to have a fireplace? What some of those items?
Yeah, I think granite or quartz. And a fireplace would be nice. Yeah.
A fireplace that we can just flip a switch.
Yeah, not a wood stove.
I don't want to have to chop any wood up, John.
Okay, I get it. I grew up chopping wood. I don't like chopping wood anymore.
Yeah.
We lived with a wood stove, and it was like, like the weather's been in Medford. I remember going out to the backyard. My dad would go out there and get it. I'm like, why do we use this wood stove? And then the front room was 100 degrees and the back rooms were 40, right? I'm like, okay, I don't like this deal. So let's dig a little bit in more. Do you ever care about how the house is oriented? So what I mean by that, so when we look at Medford, right, we've got southern exposure. We've got, I have a northern exposure from my backyard. I prefer having the southern exposure. Do you guys care about that? Or is it really more about, hey, it's not a big deal, it's where the house is at?
Honestly, we don't care about that as long as the house, fits our needs. One other important thing for me is our master bathroom has to have a bathtub shower combo, not just a shower. It's really important.
Okay. And I heard that you like higher ceilings, you want open space. So when I hear about an open space, let's make sure we're together. So you don't really care if you have a formal dining room and a formal living. If it's a great room and they all fit together, that would be preferable for you?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's dig in a little bit more. So what part of town, have you thought about what part of town you want to be in?
Well, we're not super familiar with Medford yet. And so
that's why we'll kind of lean on you. We were told that the neighborhood you live in was a really nice neighborhood. So that's one of the things that Mary said. And just, neighborhoods like that, our kids are in school, so it'd be nice to find out where we can get information on the the different school districts, on where
So
they're
do you have
rated.
any preference for schools yet? Have you locked in that it has to be these schools?
No, we haven't, because we're also looking at potential private schools. So, if you have any help with that, that'd be great too.
My kids went to private schools. Medford schools are okay. They're not great.
Okay.
Some schools, great schools, are better than others. There's really only two high schools that are going to go to if we're in Medford proper. And I mean, there's actually a third one now where they actually changed the curriculum now where if kids want to just become a welder or they want to do something like that, I don't know what they call that, but that's available now, which I think is a great, great option. Now, we talked about some other areas. So we talked about Medford, but there's also Central Point, there's Talent, there's Phoenix, and those are closer to Ashton where you're working in, Jen. Do you care? Would you be open to that, or you pretty much want to stay over close to where Mary's at?
Well, go ahead. I'm going to find out what we like.
I think if the house matched all of our criteria and it wasn't too far away, we would be open to that.
I would say actually we would probably want to live closer to things that we could go do. So Medford, we would like to be able to walk downtown. We would like to be able to be, or maybe a short drive. We don't want to be too far away from different things, right?
That would be ideal. Yeah, we don't want to be out in the middle of nowhere. We want to be close to stuff, but
Well, luckily Medford's pretty small. Everything's about 10
Yeah.
minutes, but I get it.
Okay, good.
And you don't want to live too much downtown in Medford. That's where you don't want to live. So if I was
Okay.
being selective. So give me an idea of what price points you're thinking.
me.
Yeah. Oh, I get to make the choice on this one. So
Yeah,
I'm really
well-
excited. Any 700,000 would be our max. That would be our top.
And what would be perfect for you?
As far as price
200,
point.
right? 200 would be perfect.
Yeah.
Right? Sorry,
Well,
guys.
I mean, I would like if you're giving your home away, I'm not going to be opposed,
Okay.
So
All right. So let me ask you this. Have you guys met with a lender yet and got pre-qualified at all?
no, really when we talked to Mary, she said to meet with you and that you would give us the best suggestions on where we should go from here.
Great, guys. And I've got some really good lenders I work with. And, I've found through the years that if people actually work with people I refer to them, we're going to have more likely to have a better experience. Because it's funny, we get to the end and if the lender screws up, who do you remember screwed up?
The agent.
Me. Because somehow I'm responsible for the whole thing. Like, so I have people that pick the lender that I don't control, and then they have a bad experience and somehow it taints the whole thing. So I'm going to recommend you to a lender, and we can set up a call. We can actually schedule an appointment today. But the lender I work with is one of the top in town. I've been working with him for 10 years now. And here's the deal. Most of the time, his rates are extremely competitive. Are they the cheapest? Not always. Does it make a little bit of difference? Not much in your payment. What I can tell you is, one, he does what he says he's going to do. He's going to explain things to you. Number two, I send him a lot of business. I wish I got a kickback, but I don't. So the only kickback I get is that my clients get special treatment because I send him enough business every month to pay his mortgage. Do you think that might help me get some special treatment for my clients? So when there's a deal going on and there's a challenge, and there's always a challenge in a transaction. So I like to say, if anybody tells you it's like a pilot. If he tells you they're going to take you from Medford to New York and there's going to be no turbulence, he's a liar. Right? He can't guarantee that. But what he can guarantee is that I am the most skilled at avoiding the bumps and making sure that everything is as well as we can to get you there safely. And that's what I tell you through the real estate process. I've been doing this a long time. I've been through it all. Up markets, down markets, crazy markets. I've learned how to navigate the turbulence to make sure that you have the best experience possible. And one of those is working with the right lenders. And the other is because I send so much business, if there's anything, he will take my call right now. And if you talk to other people, half the time they're struggling to get a hold of a lender or a title person. They don't return the calls. So do you think that could be an advantage for you?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now, again, listen closely. You can work with whoever you want. I'm not trying to control it. I'm just telling you, if you want to win, this would be a better way to do it. And if you meet with them and you don't like them, I can give you a couple other people that you could meet with as well. But this would be who I'd start with. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about timing. When would be perfect?
As soon as possible.
Yeah. We're actively wanting to look at homes and pick out the right one.
Okay, super. That's a great thing to know. Now, I'm going to come back, guys. I'm going to stop on this. oftentimes when I was doing this presentation, and I missed it in the beginning because I'm out of practice, I would say, hey, and what day is it today? It's January. So I would look at what big dates are. I'd look at Easter. I'd look at 4th of July. I'd look at Thanksgiving. I'd look at school starting and say, so you're saying you want to do it pretty quick. So let's say you're in your house and I missed it. If you're in your house and it was, what's your favorite holiday? You like Easter, right? So if you're in Easter and when you're thinking about your house, I'd actually pretend that you're already in it and that you're walking around and describing it to me. Anytime we can get people to use their imaginations, what'll happen is people will go into their brain and that also has them connect deeper with you. It's psychological, guys. So when they're digging in, right? So today it's January. So tell me, Jen, now we're in, it's Easter. And the typical process for buying a house, if you're buying something, you don't have to sell a house and we're not buying a new construction, really what's going to happen is most of the time if we put something in escrow, you should be closed in no less than 45 days. I mean, no longer than 45 days. I've been getting them done sometimes in 20, 25 days if the seller can move out. Because we're a little bit of a slower market right now, we're not going as crazy as we were 2 years ago. That means lenders can jump faster and move quicker, which is actually a lot more enjoyable. You get that process done. So if we look at this, so the reason I asked you timing is that have you guys done any looking at houses yet? Have you been out looking? Have you driven around? You've been doing much with Zillow?
I've been looking online and stuff. We haven't really went out in person and looked at anything.
All right. So we're going to look at 3 or 4 today and get us started. But what I want you guys to be thinking about when we go to any house, I'm going to ask you, how do you grade it? And you're going to say, I want it, or, hey, this is a 5 out of 10. And I'm going to ask you what made it a 5, pro and con.
Okay.
And then when we go to the next house, I'm going to ask you, and what I'm going to remind you is when you look at the first house, if the second house is better, forget about the first house. Just take it out of your mind. Because what I found is if people are just trying to remember every house they looked at, they're going to get confused and they're going to forget the details of the one they really like. So we're actually going to be grading those. When we get done, we'll say, hey, one of these, we got to the end. I really still like number 2. And we're going to talk, hey, would you guys like to make an offer? And you're going to say yes or no. Okay. And if we're not ready, that's great. But what I'm going to make sure that you guys are educated enough during the process and we're looking that you aren't going to have to worry about whether it's priced right. You don't need to do that on your own. When we actually find a house that's of interest, I'm going to put together what we call a market analysis, almost similar to what it's not as extensive as appraisal, but it's that basic that we're going to actually look at the numbers together of what things are sold for. And we're going to come together with what a competitive offer is. And I'm going to show you, hey, if we got it this price, this would be a smoking deal. This price, I think we're a little on the high side, but it's still okay. And then I'm going to tell you, anything over this, I'm not going to advise you guys pay that much. Now, ultimately, if you decide to pay more, that's your grown-ups. You get to do what you want to do, right? But I want to advise you here the pros and cons, and because I don't know the exact price on things. I wish I was God. I'm not. So here's what a fair range is, right? And there's no exact price on a house. Even appraisers, that's not the exact price. I've had houses where they've appraised 20. I had one recently, a flip house, and I do a lot of flip houses, guys. And that'll help you because I can actually look at repairs. If there's a few things we need to do, I can give you ideas of what's easy to get done, what the costs are, and I can introduce you to some people to get those done. But like I've had a house where it appraised at 230 and we had it at 250. We kicked that appraiser out and the next appraiser came in and appraised it at 255. Same house. We didn't do anything different. So appraisers aren't exact. What appraisals really are is to make a bank feel comfortable enough to loan on that property. It isn't always how it looks. So let's dig into this. So I've got it. So Jace, is that 4th bedroom going to be a den for you as an office? Is that what you're thinking?
No, the den would be a bonus if we had that, but we do need a minimum of 4 bedrooms for the kids and ourselves.
I'm just trying to figure out where you're going to work at.
Yeah, in the garage apparently is what I was told earlier. So
So do we need to have a 2-car or 3-car garage?
2-car would be 3-car would be preferable. 2-car is fine. There's things to us that are easily negotiable, that we don't necessarily need.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay. So, and again, you don't want a big yard, but you want a decent, some space for the kids, maybe your dog. Um, but you don't want a tiny lot.
Yeah, no, we don't want, really if we could have something that was a 0.15 or to 0.15 minimum, no more than maybe a zero point 0.3 of an acre, would
Only a
be,
realtor would, hey guys, I'm gonna come.
yeah,
Only a
yeah,
realtor
that's
would
true.
say 0.13 of a lot.
Yeah. So we no more than a quarter acre, but we don't want a postage stamp.
What about a pool?
Yes, we do want a
We
pool.
want a pool.
Yeah,
Is
that
it
we agree on.
mandatory? Is it mandatory?
No, it's not
Yes.
mandatory, but it would be a nice bonus.
Yes. No, it's
Like,
not
I
mandatory.
mean, Medford's not like Vegas in terms of like how many pools are. There's actually a surprising amount, but if you try to only look for pools, it's really going to limit your choices of what's out there.
Yeah.
That would be a
Um,
bonus if we had a pool.
get a hot tub, right? We can always do a hot tub.
Yeah.
So, is there anything I missed? So we talked about timing. So let me ask you this: do you have an idea of how many houses you think you have to look at before you'd be able to buy a house?
You know, I think that we've from the last one that we bought and kind of knowing how that situation was, I think that when we find the right one, we'll know. If it's the first house or the fifth house, like we have a good idea of what we want. What do you think,
I
honey?
would like to do it in under 10 if I could, just because,
Okay.
I mean, and that even seems like a lot to me.
Yeah, and what we'll do with this, guys, is that the process will be a little bit. I'm going to send you a bunch of listings that actually fit your basic criteria. Now, I'm going to start with a bigger swath. You're going to say, well, that didn't quite, I'll say a minimum square footage, but there's going to be a bunch of them you don't like. But the reason I want you to look through them is to start seeing really what's available in the market. And again, right now, we don't have a lot of inventory. And that's one of the reasons I asked you how many to look at, because people think we're selling less houses than we did a year ago, but things are still selling fast because there's no inventory, right? So we want to make sure we're ready. And that's what I always tell people, when the right house comes, I want you to say yes or no. Because I just had a deal the other day on one of my listings. The price started high. We reduced it. And it sat there. It was a Friday. And I think Thursday, I get a call from an agent. And he goes, hey, my clients really want that house. I think we're going to write. I said, okay, let's do that. Let's go. I'm just trying to talk to him, trying to finish this prequal. I said, okay. But I didn't get an offer. The next day, it was Friday. I get another agent that calls me and says, oh, my client really likes this. I think he's going to write. And I said, and I think that was Saturday. So it was 2 days later. And I'm like, great. We got somebody that's interested, but I don't know what they're going to do. They haven't wrote yet. So he says, we're going to write. I said, okay. So I called the first buyer or the first agent and said, hey, somebody's going to write, just to tell him he hasn't written yet, but he's going to write. So guess what happened? Neither one of them wrote on Saturday. So I'm like, that's weird. Sunday morning, I get a call from an agent. She goes, hey, I'm going to show the house at 9. It was vacant. I said, yeah, go for it. Then I went out golfing for a couple hours. I checked my email, and the guy from Thursday wrote an offer. So I called her back and said, hey, I got another offer coming in. It's in my inbox. I didn't know it was coming until just now. And she knows me, so she knows I'm not lying, right? I'm telling the truth. So then I called the other guy that was supposed to write on Saturday. And that agent said, oh, he's been dinking around, but I'll call him. So I had 3 offers come in on Sunday. Guess who got the house? The one that wrote the offer last, they wrote the best offer, which was great. But here's the realization. If the guy on Thursday would have wrote that offer when he thought about it, he would have got that house probably $5,000 to $10,000 less than what we actually sold it for, because my client was willing to sell it. So that's why I like my clients to either say we're in or we're out. Because what I don't want is somebody else to take the decision away from you. Right? So even if we're going to make a low offer, I want to make that low offer and let them make a choice versus us waiting and leaving it in somebody else's control. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because really, if that guy had written the offer, he would have got it $5,000 to $10,000 cheaper than what I ended up selling it for. So is there anything I missed on what you're looking for and about the process we're going to go through?
No.
No, I think it's pretty clear.
Great, great. So let me ask you this. What are you guys looking for in an agent? Now you've already had an agent help you once or twice. So maybe you can share some of the things that you liked about that, some of the things you didn't like. But what's the most important thing that I can do that when we get to the end of this transaction and you're in your beautiful home, you're going to say, John was awesome, and I want to refer him to all my friends. What do we have to do?
So really, we talked about this because the last agent that we had, they were okay, but we felt like we had to always reach out to them. And it was very rare that they called us, even with just an update of that there is no update. Maybe that sounds unreasonable, but when we were buying our first house, we thought that there would be something every day. What are we doing? And we felt like we would go 7, 8, 10 days, and then we'd get a call saying, oh, whatever it was. So just somebody who communicates a little bit more and make sure that we're smooth or understanding the process of where we're at in purchasing. That'd be ideal for me. Communication.
All right, I get that. So rather over communicate than under communicate.
Yeah.
What else, guys? What are the qualities you're looking for in a real estate agent?
I mean, it kind of goes with a lot. I mean, I could go on. The list could go on, but really, it'd be nice to have someone.
I'd like you to go on a little bit.
Okay. So it'd be nice to have someone that, I really feel like if we're using someone as an agent and, they're making what they should make, honestly, when they're helping us purchase a home, but, they should be there on time for us, right? We shouldn't be the ones waiting for them. We're kind of looking for someone who's going to be, we are looking for someone who's going to be the professional. That's why we came here, because you were recommended. Someone who's going to show up on time, someone who's going to educate us throughout the process.
Somebody's that's going to call back in a timely manner.
Yeah,
or answer their phone if we have questions.
Yeah, it was not that I need somebody to work 24/7, but if I texted on a Friday at 5:15, it would have been nice to get a text back before Monday at 9:30. Because sometimes that's where my anxiety was at through the weekend of, hey, am I paying for the lights that are on at that house even though I haven't closed on it yet? I didn't know if I was or not. But I just wanted the answer. So, someone who's gonna be the professional, who's gonna guide us through the process, who's gonna show up on time, and maybe these are things that we're thinking of now because that's kind of not what happened with the first one.
Yeah.
I actually thought about getting into real estate because the agent that we had, we felt didn't really do that great of a job, so we thought maybe we could do it. And I decided to stay.
A lot of people. That's how a lot of people in either one or the other. They get into real estate because they had a great experience with their agent and they'd like to be able to help other people have that experience, or it was such a bad experience. They're like, that guy made that kind of money, or that gal, I could probably do that myself. So let's get into it. Then they get in, they go, man, this is a lot harder than what I thought. So the other thing I'd ask, I'm going to repeat some of those guys for you guys. So one is I really heard communication is super critical of how we communicate with you guys. Are you okay with text and email for the most part and phone calls?
Yeah, that would work.
I like to text a lot, just so there's a lot of times there's simple stuff that we can just text. The other thing is that I have actually a transaction coordinator. So what I mean by that is part of my team is I'm really good at helping people buy houses. I'm really good at connecting. I'm trying to figure that out. But what I've got is a person now that once we go into escrow, her sole job is just to take care of all the little details with timelines, frames, and she's going to be emailing to you, keeping you on time frames. So you'll actually see them. Hey, we got a deadline coming up. Oh, here's something that we passed this deadline. So she's going to really, and again, that doesn't mean that I'm not communicating. What it means is you're going to get more communication, right? And I've found if you over communicate, if you tell me, hey, you're communicating too much, that's my preference. Then we can slow down rather than you're wondering what's going out there. So I built this team because I wanted you to be able to better service, right? And to make sure all the details. And I didn't want to have to get caught up in all the little deals of paperwork, right? I'm really good at writing contracts and making sure everything happens. So I heard you about communication. What I heard you is about professionalism. I heard you want somebody that has a lot of knowledge. And I think Mary kind of shared that with you after me 30 years here and selling as many houses as we do. Do you feel comfortable with my knowledge at this point?
Absolutely. Yeah.
The thing that I didn't hear that I think is so critical, I wanted, and I would think you would want, is an agent that you feel you can truly trust and is looking out for your best interest, not them just trying to make a commission.
Yes.
Absolutely.
100%.
Because what I heard was a little bit is it kind of like that person put you into a house and then they just let it go. And it was like, oh, I got my commission. They just kind of moved on. Did I hear
what
that?
It felt
correctly?
like.
Yeah. And I feel like once we get a house, that's just the beginning of the process. Now, how do we take you through it? And then the next is you can't get rid of me. Once we sell the house, I'm your agent. You're stuck with me, guys. So I hope that's not a bad thing. Because the key is I want to be a resource for you after you move into that home. Not only I want you to refer other people to me, just like Mary did, which is critical, but I want to be, hey, John, what's happening? What I need some repairs done. Hey, John, I'm looking to do something else. I've been here a long time, guys. I'm connected really well in this valley. And if there's somebody I don't know, it's surprising, but I know somebody that knows that person. So I have clients call me that they're looking to change a job. Who do you know that I could connect with? That's the type of, when I bring people in, I feel like they're a family and I want you to be part of that. So as we go with this, so do you guys know how realtors get paid?
My understanding is it's paid off the seller. That's when we bought a house, that's how it was paid. When we sold our house, that's how it was paid.
Yeah, and that's typically true. Not always, but typically. So the idea is that agents, I don't get paid for hanging my license at EXP. I actually have to pay EXP a monthly fee. I don't know if you know that. I don't get paid for going and showing houses. I don't get paid for driving around. I don't get paid for all that marketing. The only way a realtor actually makes money is when a transaction gets closed. Typically, agents are getting paid somewhere between 2.5% and 3% on a transaction, somewhere in there. There's no absolute number, but that's typically, I know what I'm willing to work for. So let me ask you guys the last thing about trust. Are you guys looking for me to be a salesperson, or are you looking for me to be a consultant?
Consultant?
Consultant.
Why? What's the difference?
We've never been asked that question, so I really don't know.
We don't want somebody that's just trying to sell us something and make a commission.
Okay. And do you know how consultants usually get paid?
Now that you say that, they get paid when they're consulting before they even sell anything.
They get paid typically a retainer, like an attorney, and hourly. Okay. But most buyers, and so I work as a consultant for people. I'm not willing to be as a salesperson. Most agents are salespeople because they're just trying to get that deal. What I've learned is if I'm concerned about getting paid, I can't truly look out for your best interest. Imagine if you went to work, Jen, and you're like, well, at the end of the week, the client goes, your boss goes, well, I don't think you did a good job this week. I'm not going to pay you, even though you did your good job. Wouldn't that be pretty frustrating?
Yeah.
So as a consultant, what a consultant does, and this is what I like if you guys go out to buy a car, that's a salesperson there. If you don't buy on that lot, guess what happens? They don't get paid. So do you think they can really honestly always be looking out for your best interest?
No.
What do you think happens if that sales guy's struggling for money that month and needs to pay his mortgage, or gal? Do you think
going to do what it takes to sell the car?
And I'm not saying they're going to be unethical, but one of the things that you guys told me, and you didn't, but I assumed it, you probably don't want to live on a busy street. Am I right?
Right.
But you know what? I've had clients that they called me and they fell in love with a house on a Saturday night. And they said, I love this house, but happened to be on a busy street or Saturday afternoon. And we went and showed it to them. I knew I was going out of town the next day. Now, what would happen, Jace? And I'm going to put you in my shoes, an agent's shoes. So if you were the real estate agent and I was going out and I told you I didn't want a house on a busy street, and you were going out of town for a couple of days the next day, and you didn't know whether I was working with other people or just with you, and we didn't have a formal agreement, and you didn't know if I was going to buy that house. You didn't know if I was going to be ethical to you. The concern is, my question, Jace, if you were worried about getting paid and you needed to get paid, and I wanted to buy that house on a busy street, which wouldn't have been ethical for you to sell it to me, I'm a grown-up, would you probably remind me that I didn't want to be on a busy street if you're telling the truth?
If I was telling the truth, I would remind you. But if we're going based off of someone unethical and not just trying to make a paycheck, then no, they probably wouldn't.
And remember, it's not unethical. You're a grown-up. There's nothing unethical with buying on a busy street, right? So it wouldn't actually be unethical to let you buy that house. But what I can tell you, if you were concerned about getting paid, you're going to let that person buy the house. So what I like to do with my clients is I work as a consultant. We'll take it a little more deeper into this, but why it's a benefit to you. Because what I want to do is when that house comes and you like it, my job at that point is tell you everything that's wrong with the house. Now, I'm not going to try and talk you out of it, but my job at that, I do sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want you to buy this house, guys. And since I'm never worried, because I work as a consultant, I'm not worried about getting paid. I don't care if we buy a house this week, we buy a house in 6 months, right? Now, I want to reach your goals. But the idea is I always wanted to be free. The other is, so when people hire me, that means if they deal with a for sale by owner, they're gonna work through me directly to make sure I get paid. Does that make sense? Because again, I never want to be in competition with you. Did that make sense? Because if I'm trying to sell you a house as fast as possible before you go find a house with somebody else or buy a FSBO, does that mean I can truly look out for your best interests?
No.
No. So, and a lot of agents don't talk about this. They probably never brought this up to you before. But see, this is the key, because when I know I can truly look out for your interests, and as long as I'm doing my job, now you can fire me anytime if I'm not doing my job, but if I'm doing my job, I want to know I don't have to have fear, because I got a family to feed. And my wife gets pissed when I work for free in the end. You know what I mean, Jen?
I do.
You know, and I work 12 hours a day, typically 6 days a week. I don't work on Sundays, guys. So if we're working, I don't show houses on Sunday. I negotiate a contract if we were in the middle of something, but I take one day off a week, because I've learned that most agents get divorced. I mean, it's the highest divorce rate of any of the professions. And what I've learned is, over the years watching my clients, if I make that extra money by working on a Sunday and I get divorced, you don't end up with half of what you have. You end up with a quarter of what you have. Now, I don't know if either of you have been divorced before, but if you have, you know that's the truth. And so I've realized that I can work so much. Now, I'm never going to not negotiate on a deal for you if you need to, but that's the one day that I try to spend with my family. Does that work for you, Jen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to stay married. I love my wife. We're 32 years now, and by the grace of God, she's put up with me this long. So, guys, if you want me to be a consultant, what I want you to do is, so there's two different types of agency that's out in the world now. There's representing the seller. So when you guys listed your house, remember you signed paperwork that said they were listing your house and they represented you. Remember that?
Yes.
And you signed a contract, right? Now, the truth is, if you probably could have got out of that contract, if they hadn't sold the house fast, you probably could have worked out to cancel that contract. But once your house was in escrow, then it was going to work out that way. So the other is buyer agency. And today it's a bigger deal than it's ever been, in that by signing a buyer broker agreement, it means that you've hired me exclusively to work for you. And I have a fiduciary and a contractual agreement between the two of us. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what that means is, and I've got this form and it looks intimidating, right? Because it's 3 pages. Remember when you signed that listing agreement, it was like 9 pages and you're like, what the heck?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And all that really mattered on that was, what am I going to pay in commission, right?
Right.
At the end, right? And how long is the listing? So what we do is we actually have a buyer broker, and you guys are going to hire me. I put down here, for the next 6 months, you're going to hire me. I've got your name already on here. And the idea is I'm going to get paid at least 2.5%. Okay. So where does that work? If the seller offers 3, I'm going to get 3. But sometimes the sellers now are starting to do stupid things, and they're starting to say, I'm only going to pay 1%. Well, I don't want to unethically not show you that house, but I got to get paid a reason. You guys know how much you get paid for a job, right? And what's reasonable. And you don't have your employer just come back and say, I'm not going to pay. So for us, what we have is, and the other is, we're going to negotiate with a for sale by owner. If they're not willing to pay and you don't want to pay that money out of your pocket, then we're going to have to find another house. And there's plenty of houses. And if we go for a seller that says we're going to offer 1, I'm going to still tell you about that house when we say we're going to have to make up that difference. We're either going to have to renegotiate with the seller, or you guys are going to have to come up with it. But this allows me as an agent to truly serve you and represent you as a consultant. But again, guys, there's nothing you're going to pay up front. And the other thing in this agreement is, see the writing down here? If at any time you're unhappy with me and you want to fire me, 24 hours notice and we're out of this deal. So you're truly not even bound into it. And I'm okay with that, because I know that I've helped a lot of people. We've done a good job. But what I've learned is, if I don't have an agreement on this with people, I'm not willing to move forward, because I want to be on the same page. I never want to be conflicted, right? I want to know that I'm 100% in for you guys, and we're 100% in together, because it's a partnership, and I want to get you the best house we can at the best price and the timeframes you want, and make sure that you don't end up with a lemon and you get all the things we talked about. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So now we're going to go ahead and initial here and sign here, guys. You guys can take this home and read all the details on it. And again, there's a note in here that says, if you want to cancel it, you can. So we're just going to get it together. I'm going to give you a copy of it. You've got everything else. I want you to read everything. And if you have any questions on it, because, my dad taught me years ago, the only dumb question is the one you don't ask. So I want you to go through this. Yeah, go ahead. You got a question?
So what happens if we go out and we look at several houses with you, and something comes up to where we decide we can't buy right now, and we have to wait? Do we owe you anything then?
No, no, nope. That's where the beauty of this agreement. I'm working as a consultant, but I'm not charging you up front, guys. My fee comes at the end. And the only thing that works is because of this agreement, that's how I know I'm getting paid, right? But if you guys don't end up buying, you change your mind, you fire me for some reason, you don't owe me anything.
Okay. I feel better about
that. That's why I don't feel bad, because I want to know sometimes the right house doesn't come up. So you guys I think that we can solve what you guys are looking for. I think it's very reasonable what you can do. I have some people that come and want a needle in a haystack. And I did remember in the beginning where I said you had three options: one not buy, one fire, work with me, one work with me. The other option I didn't tell you is sometimes I just decide not to work with people. I don't like putting that up front, but hey, if I don't like the people, which happens sometimes, people are people, right? But also if I don't think that I'm going to be able to meet their needs, like if they are it's 1 in a million, I'm going to find that house and they don't have reasonable expectations. Most of them would say, guys, I don't think I'm going to be able to meet your needs and you're going to end up being unhappy with me. I think either one, we need to change what your expectations are, or you probably need to find another agent, or I'll put you on my list. And if I see things coming, I'll call, but I don't want to commit that I can help you find that. People are kind of surprised when you do that. But what I've learned is my time is super valuable, just like yours is. I'm not going to try and find a needle in a haystack. That's crazy. But what I know with you guys, with this price range, the other thing we want to make sure we do is we'll go look at those 4 houses today. But what I'd like to do right now, so go ahead and sign this, guys. Okay, so you signed it. Then I want you to go ahead and, if you guys haven't met with the lender, because what I don't want to do is I don't want you guys to fall in love in a house and then there's something there that's not going to allow you to qualify for 700 and we found that house. Or you may find that you qualify for 8 and the payment's less than what you expected, and then you'd be disappointed. And what I've learned, Jace, if we go out and Jen falls in love with a house for 700 and the lender says you can only do 650 and we can't do it, guess who's in trouble, brother?
The lender.
Yeah, the lender, not the lender. It's all you, dude. It's all you. So I want to make sure. So what I'd like to do right now is let's call this lender and get on your guys' calendar, because we're going to look today, but I don't want to look at houses again until we've got that pre-qual done, because you really can't make offers without the pre-qual. And the stronger the pre-qual we have, the more likely I have power to actually influence that seller to get you the best price and the best terms. So you guys okay with that? Let's go ahead and make a call now. Ring, ring, ring. I'm going to do the introduction. Hey, Brian, I've got Jen and Jason, some clients of mine. They're looking to get pre-qualified. Hey, I'm going to put them on the line. Can you get on their calendar right now? And I'm going to give you the phone and you're going to schedule. See, this is what's called leading people. I don't want to just say, can you call this lender? And then they're waiting. If they're open and I've got their full attention, we're going to set that now, because that's actually to their advantage and to mine. Now we're going to go look at these 3 or 4 houses, Jen. If one of them you fall in love with, we're going to have to rush and get that lender to pre-qual a little faster. But let's go have some fun, guys. I'm super excited to work with you. And I just want to let you know, I don't take your commitment lightly. And I don't take this opportunity lightly. It's a huge deal that you guys have decided to do. And I take this as a major opportunity to be able to serve you. And for me, it's a gift. And I thank you. And I'm going to work my butt off to help you guys get what you want to achieve. And I just want to thank you again for trusting me. And we're just going to have a lot of fun. And I'm a little goofy sometimes along the way, so forgive me. Some things happen, right? But we're just going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to find you the best house, and you're going to have the best experience you ever had. And if there's anything along the way where you're feeling a little odd, Jason, Jen, I want you to voice your opinion. I can handle it. I can handle it. If there's somewhere you're feeling uncomfortable, I want you to share me right away, because I'm learning all the time too. And we all come from different perspectives. So I just ask for grace along the way. If there's something that happens, you guys share with me. Can you do that for me?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Awesome. So let's go look at these houses.
Boom.
Okay. So, guys, what I can tell you is that presentation, I'm not quite as talented as more as I used to be. There's a few things I missed there, but not much. Um, that works. That works.
I wanted to say this, two quick things. Number one, the university actually just texted Jennifer and she has to run into work. So she does have to take off.
All
So
right.
they don't care that it's icy outside. They want her to run down there. So she does have to go.
It was nice meeting with you,
But
John.
I did want to say this, that even though we knew we were going to be doing this role play with you, there was still a level of me being and us being a little bit nervous, right? But as we're playing this through and we're going, I found myself becoming more comfortable, felt more engaged, and that we could laugh more. So what I took from this is that, as we're doing this process, John, and as we're doing this with you, your clients are following your lead, and you made us feel comfortable. You got us to the point to where we felt like we're laughing a little bit more, we're a little bit more open, and I could see the power in doing this. And I really didn't, when you built so much value for us, this is just me looking at the outside in, right? When you built so much
You're
value for
looking
us,
at it from a point of what are you doing for your clients?
right, 100%.
Am I
So
doing this, right?
when I'm looking at this, you built so much value that when it came down to that buyer broker agreement, we'd already mentally made the commitment. We'd already said yes to you 30 times. We'd already made up in our mind that we're working with you. So to me, it's a much easier transition when you go over that buyer broker agreement and the way that you did it and how the fees lay out. Go ahead and sign here. And you also put in perspective that we'd also signed before when we sold our home, right? And you knew that because you got to know us. So I feel like when you do it like what John's showing us here, and you build that value up front, it's very easy to get that to get the commitment, to get the signature. Now on the flip side, for the ones who give us a lot of pushback, those might be the ones that John's talking about. That's like, we're probably not the right fit to work with, because at some point it's going to come down the pipeline that we have to have that signed for our file. So thank you for having my wife and I do this with you. This was phenomenal.
Well, let me share with you guys. If somebody has resistance to signing this or agreeing to work with you exclusively, there's more going on. So you need to add questions. So there's a great book out I read years and years ago, and it talks about the 5 different types of clients. And I'm going to just express a couple of them. One is the type of client that uses you for information but never does business with you. You know those type? The other is that they don't trust anybody no matter what you do. Okay. So the idea is in the beginning, we work with everybody. Those are the bottom, 4 or 5. So the idea is in the beginning, we're just so hungry, we work with anybody. As we get going, we start putting boundaries around what we're doing. We start understanding why they're not willing to commit. And a lot of times it's like, well, could you walk me through this a little bit more? Well, I just don't know. I mean, I remember I had a guy that wouldn't do it. I said, look, here's the deal. This is the way I work. But he goes, John. And it's funny, he ended up being one of my best clients. I said, here's the deal, Jerry. This was 25 years ago, and I still remember this. He was a stockbroker, and I said, Jerry, here's the deal. I'll go show you houses twice. And if at that point you aren't committed to working with me, then we're going to part ways. Is that fair for you? Yes. So we ended up showing them twice because I had time, right? I made the choice there, guys. You all make a choice. If you decide to go out and show people houses without getting a buyer broker, without having them meet with you, that's your choice. So I made a conscious choice with Jerry, and we still made a new agreement. Just like when we talked to you guys, when you take an overpriced listing and you know it's overpriced, you should be getting an agreement with the seller right then of when you're going to reduce the price and how much. Because you want to talk about that at that point. So Jerry, he ended up working with me. And the funny thing is, I sold his house. He bought another one. I found a buyer that bought his house. And then that buyer I used and sold her house. It was 5 transactions in the middle of that. I think that was the count. So again, you get the choice of how we're doing that, but realize that when somebody resists, either one, you didn't present properly, or number 2, they might have some things going on. So you need to ask better questions. You need to dig into that. Hey, I could totally understand what you're feeling. Could you walk me through a little bit why you're concerned? I work with so many people. This isn't a concern. I'm concerned that I actually maybe said the wrong thing or didn't communicate clearly. Could you walk me through this? And many of you guys hear me as a very strong personality. And a lot of times on these calls, I'm saying things really direct. And hopefully you heard today that I can be a little lighter, that, I'm changing how I communicate. My tone's changing according to who I'm talking with, right? And that's what we have to do. And that's only because we want them to feel most comfortable. Because when people are most comfortable, they're going to share most what is important to them, and then we can serve them at the highest level, which is this whole presentation is about. It's not about selling a house fast, but what I will tell you is, how many people have asked that question? How many thousands do you think you'd have to look at before you'd be ready to buy? I'll bet almost nobody's done that on this call. Maybe a few people. But what that does, when somebody tells me I need to look at probably 50, oh, that's fantastic. Could you share with me why you think you need to do that? Well, I need to know the value. I need to make sure I'm educated. Wow. You know what? My job when you find a house is actually to do the comps and to show you what the real value is. Hey, you know what? You're right that the most important thing about a house is the neighborhood, then the street, then the exterior, then the interior. A lot of people make a mistake and they buy the interior, and that ends up being a problem. So you get more comfortable. What I want you to do is, we know where you want to be. I'm going to send you a bunch of comps of things that have sold in the area that you want to look, and things that are pending, so you get a true number. And I want you to go through those so you start getting more comfortable, maybe even drive by them on their own. Because what I can tell you is, we don't need to go and look at the inside of 50 houses for you to feel most comfortable. Does that work for you, Jason? So it's asking them where they come from. A lot of people are uncomfortable with that question. I learned this from Joe Stump years ago. Hey, this is the purpose of this meeting. When we get done today, you're going to have 3 choices. 1, maybe isn't the right time to buy. Number 2, you don't want to work with me. And that's okay. That buyer book's for you anyways. It doesn't happen very often, but hey, if we don't click or you don't feel comfortable, I don't want you working with me. Number 3, which I hope most of the time happens, you're going to say, hell yes, I want to work with John. Now, I sometimes used to say, 4th option is, I don't think it's going to work between us. And if I say that happens once in a while. But you see, I still brought that into the conversation at some point. And again, when you do that, that changes the tone again of your authority. That realizing that it's just not about when they hire me. I may choose if I want to hire them as well. And that salesperson and consultant thing, that is the crux of how a buyer broker is presented. Because when they start saying they don't want a salesperson, and the other thing that we did in that is that we reverse the roles. And that reverse role. So I don't need to comment anymore. Again, this isn't the only way to do it, guys. I'm just telling you, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've taught a lot of people to do it. I taught Devin, that worked for Jeff for years, how to do it. That guy was a machine. So, go ahead. Any questions, guys?
Yeah, I have a quick comment, John, and then I see that Joanne Graham has her hand up. First off, awesome stuff today. I was taking copious notes because I feel like every time I get to do this, I learn, and I'm always learning from you. So thank you. And huge that you had a husband and wife. I liked seeing how that interplay worked. So thank you, Jason and Jen, for stepping in. I think I fumbled the ball on that today, but I really appreciate it. Totally understanding what needed to happen here. Joanne, you have a question, and then there are a couple in the chat, John. I've written them down, so I have them just kind of from along the way. So I'll circle back to those. Joanne.
Hi. First of all, that was amazing. So thank you. And it reminded me of a lot of stuff that I used to do that I don't do anymore. It was like, oh my gosh, I am so rusty. But one of the things was when you said, the 4th option of, I don't want to work with you. It reminded me of the Joe Stump. Where
do you think I learned it? And where do you think I taught
it? Mutual permission to reject. That was his kind of mutual permission to reject. If you don't like me, we don't need to work together. And if I don't like you, we're not going to work together. And it makes them subconsciously want you to like them. Like, it makes them want to be on their best behavior because they don't want to be rejected. And it turns the whole mental, like the authority thing, it turns their mental in, oh, we better be nice. We better be polite. We better show up. We don't want him to reject us. And it's a powerful dynamic when you start to put that together. So anyway, I just want to say thank you, because I was just like, whoa, like just light bulbs, because this is all stuff that I used to do that I just got like either complacent or just don't really have to anymore or whatever. So this is a great reminder. So thank you so much for taking the time to put that into us.
Oh, your compliment means a lot to me, Joanne. Thank you. So,
Thank
guys,
you.
one of the things on this is just to realize, and Joanne, stay on this. Joanne, let's keep Joanne here in a minute. So, one of the things you noticed in there is how many times I mentioned referrals. How many times did I mention referrals, guys?
Like 5 or 10.
Yeah, a lot. So I talked about how I was referred to them, how the benefit of being a referral agent is going to serve them, how my expectations are that they're going to refer me. Did you hear that? I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to expect referrals from you guys because I'm going to do a great job. Are you good with that? And you see these questions. Are you good with that? Makes sense to you, right? These are terms. So I'm setting the stage for all kinds of things. I'm setting the stage of we don't have to look at that many houses. I'm setting the stages. They can be comfortable because I'm going to do a CMA. Most agents never do a CMA on a house when they sell it to them anymore. And
Okay.
Joanne, what I've found is we do get complacent. And what I'm going to tell you guys, if it's a friend or a past client, you should still do this. And here's the reason why. When we work with family and friends, it's the biggest opportunity for us to make mistakes because they have expectations and we have expectations and they're not written. So when I work with family and friends, I'm usually harder on them up front. And I tell them, I'm going to be harder on you guys up front than I'm other people because the typical tendency is that we have unwritten codes and we assume things of each other. And that's why friendships end and clients end up because they're treating each other differently than they should. I'm going to treat you more professionally. We're going to get down to the details of this, even though I know you, because I'm committed to serving you at the highest level and not having the typical family thing going on where people feel obligated to work with each other. You are not obligated to work with me. This is our expectations of each other. Does that work for you? Because I'm going to exceed your expectations, but I'm not going to assume anything. So
Good.
again, we're setting the stage all the time with people, right?
Yeah. The other thing that when you were talking about the turbulence, it reminded me of the favorite line of most agents are a taxi service. I'm a limousine. Like, do you want to just wave the taxi and get somebody to show up and take you from A to B? Or do you want it to be an experience where we're traveling together and I'm taking into consideration what you need and all that stuff? That was really good too. It was like,
And then,
remember that.
awesome. And then, guys, did you feel like I was more of a doctor? Did you feel like I was a professional
Yeah.
interviewing them? Wouldn't you want that from a doctor? I mean, I've got a new doctor I just hired. That's actually a month. I pay him by the month. It's a flat fee. I got a 2 hour meeting with them. I can call whenever I want. They're interviewing me for an hour, and when I get back, to interview and actually listen to me versus a typical doctor, a typical realtor. Hey, we just met at the house. Now now I'm going to just keep trying to bug you all the time to show you houses so you lock in and are committed to working with me. How professional is that? It's not.
And most doctors, they take this huge history, but then they never look at it. And you're like, I already told you, so that's the other thing is I'm going to read, I'm going to pay attention to what you're telling me here. I'm not going to just write it down and then forget about it.
And you notice that when I went back and said, okay, let me make sure the things you want, communication, let's get into that. Da-da. And then I added trust. A lot of times they won't say trust, but they implicitly mean it. So I'm going to bring it out like I did. Do you want someone you can truly trust?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want somebody that you know is on your team? Well, the way you can only know if somebody on your team and truly committed is if they are aligned and your goals are aligned with how they're going to get paid. And that's the truth. They know it intrinsically, right? Because when people are worried about getting paid, I'm not saying they're unethical, but you cannot truly take clients' best interest at heart. Go ahead, Liz. Anybody else besides these two? Read it up. We got a few more minutes. I'd love to answer questions. I'd love to see if anybody felt uncomfortable with certain things.
I think this is a perfect time for what we're going through as realtors in this nation to start transitioning into this because we're coming off of the cuffs of COVID. And during COVID, things were flying so fast. For me to even think about sitting and having a buyer presentation with the 10 Zillow calls I was getting a day or whatever, it was just moving too fast, right? And so we're balancing and we're calibrating. And so it's a perfect time to really look at our business and become more professional and get back to those roots and the systems and put those into place. So I really appreciate the time that you took to share this with us today because it gives me some insight on how to start meeting with buyers just like I do sellers. So I appreciate it.
And I would challenge you, Liz, even when it's busy, this is more important to do it. Because if you had done this with more people, you would have gotten more referrals and you wouldn't have had to chase Zillow leads.
I would have gotten more referrals, but I also, the buyers that weren't necessarily ready at that time, I probably would still have them in a, like in my pipeline instead of like, oh, I call them and they found someone else because they clicked on, didn't have the follow-up. But if they've been in my office or been, at a coffee shop or whatever and met with me, I think that it would have solidified our relationship. And
Right.
well, then we would have had that buyer broker agreement, right?
Right. And taking people through this process, even if they weren't referred to you, and Eddie just asked a question. Can you read Eddie's question, Jeff?
Yep. He says, what tweaks do you do if the buyer is a first-time buyer and came through one of your lead funnels, or not a first-time buyer that came through a lead funnel?
So it's the same thing. So I built my business when I moved back to Southern Oregon on Boomtown. You guys know what that is? I just hammered the phones, and mostly buyers and mostly first-time buyers. So the idea was, when I got into that conversation, it was really a matter of where you guys at in the process, what you're looking to do. And then I really talked about, we have a process set up for clients to win. Do you want to win, Eddie? So I could take you through it, Ed, just the same way. Like, hey, let's just walk through it. Hey, hey, Eddie, I just saw you checked on some listings in my neighborhood. And you're like, what are you going to say, Ed? Yeah, I did, right? So let's role play, Eddie.
Okay.
So ring, ring, ring. You're going to answer.
Hello, this is Eddie.
Hey, Eddie, this is John Sellers over at EXP. I just saw that you were looking at some listings, and I got your name here. I just wanted to follow up with you real quick. How you doing?
Hey, John, I'm doing well. How are you today?
Great, awesome. So, hey, I saw that you really like that house over 123 Main Street. Where are you at in the process right now? You just getting started, or you've been looking for a while?
Yeah, we just kind of started talking about looking around and buying a house, and this one came up, and it looks like it has most of the stuff that we're interested in, and we'd really like to go take a look at it.
I'd love to show it to you, man. So let me ask you this: Have you met with a lender yet and been pre-qualified at all? Just kind of curious about
No,
that.
just looked online and did the little simulator,
Yeah,
with a hypothetical credit score and a
yeah, I
interest
get it.
rate and payment kind of thing.
So when are you guys hoping to be in a house by if everything was perfect?
Well, gosh, if everything works out for this house, we'd like to put an offer in on it right away.
Great. So let's do this. I'd love to show you that house, but I don't know if you know this, Eddie, but 99% of the time when actually somebody calls about a house like that, they don't end up buying. Were you aware of that?
No, I wasn't.
I don't know. Are you a busy person or do you like wasting a lot of time?
No, definitely not. Definitely
Yeah.
busy and don't like wasting any time.
Well, that's the way I work. I've learned through years as a realtor for so long that most people will call and go look at a house. And the realtor's so happy to run out and show them that house, hoping they're going to lock them in as a client. And the client ends up not getting the house and they end up wasting time. We've actually set up a process so that our clients actually win. Do you like to win, Eddie?
I do.
Yeah. So we've set up a process that we can end up getting our clients, saving them 20 to 30 hours during the home buying process. We can end up making sure they don't get a lemon, make sure they get the best rates and terms, and they can hit their timelines of when they want to be. Would that be important to you?
Yes.
If there was a way, would it be worth you to get together for 20, 30 minutes? We walk through this process, show you how you do that. And then we go and look at that house, and maybe we go and look at 3 or 4 others at the same time so you can be most effective. Does that work for you?
Well, we're kind of short on time, and we were hoping to get in this house right away because if it ends up being the right one, we'd like to, get in and meet with the bank and
Well, and
get
that's
our
what I
loan
want to do.
ready. And
That's perfect. And that's what I want to do. So what I want you to do is let's get together, we'll meet, and then we're going to go look at that house. So if you want to do it tonight, let's get together. We only need 20 or 30 minutes, and we'll just go and look at that house. But if you haven't looked at a lot of other houses, Eddie, what I've learned is I don't want you to buy a house that you're not ready for. And if you haven't looked at all the other things out there, and here's the other thing, very hard to write an offer if you haven't been pre-qualified yet. The seller will just discount it. And you want to have the strongest offer when you go in so you can get the best price, don't you, Eddie?
yes,
So let's do this. Let's get together, 20 or 30 minutes. We'll walk through it, and then we'll go and look at those houses. We'll look at another, and I'll take you through it, through that whole process and make sure that you win through this. And I've helped so many people that every time we don't do the process right, most people end up having a bad experience. And you've probably heard of a lot of people who have had bad experiences with real estate agents, haven't you? Hey, by the way, what do you do for a living, Eddie?
I sell real estate.
Really? So give me an example. What'd you do before real estate?
I'm a pipe fitter.
Okay. So, Eddie, is there a process as a pipe fitter that you know there's certain things have to go in certain orders? And if you don't do those, what happens?
Oh, yeah. Definitely a process to follow.
And is that set up just so you can win, or is it also set up so the client can win?
So the client can win.
Right. Same thing with real estate. Most agents don't have a process, and the consumer isn't aware of it. So what happens is they end up having a bad experience. I've just learned now that most of my business ends up coming from referral because I've helped people so well. And so we know this process works, and that's why I'm committed to it. Does that make sense? So what does your time look like at 3 or 5 today? Can we get you into that house?
Yeah, probably will need to be after 5:30 when I get off work.
Super. I've got time on that. We'll rock it in. We'll be super efficient. We're going to get you that house. I'm going to look at a couple others based upon what that house looked like to get you in as well. Work for you? Hey, so
Yeah.
I've got this right. You're going to be bringing in with your girlfriend or wife. What's her name?
Gwendolyn.
Gwendolyn. And can you give me the correct spelling on, do I have this right that you entered in the system? Eddie, Eddypric. Is that correct?
Correct.
And does Gwendolyn go by the same last name?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm going to text you right now the directions to my office and just confirming the time. And we're going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to make sure your time's used really efficiently. Awesome. We'll see you then.
Cool. So one quick question. How do you feel about setting up this meeting via Zoom
I
versus
think it's
being
fine.
face to face?
I think it's all, so when we look at communication, we use text a lot. It's a little, it's not the best way to communicate, but sometimes that's how we have to start a relationship, right? And then it's good to use during a relationship when we're in the deal. But it's hard to close people on a text for the most part. So my goal is always get on a phone call. Then the goal is to get them face to face. If I can't get them into the office, so think about this. If you got a relo buyer, this is a great thing to do a Zoom with your relo buyer. So people say, well, I can't lock a relo buyer down. Really? Just do a Zoom. People are so comfortable with it now, way more than they were 5 years ago. So you could actually do a listing appointment this way. I know agents that do, that are living in another state, and when most of their business is referral, they actually are taking listings in their other town and doing the listing appointment just like this. They send the documents through DocuSign. They're actually reviewing the documents while they're on the phone with them. And so, yes, you can do it. But I'm going to tell you, conversions are higher face to face, and they're much better to be able to build empathy and trust. Because when I can reach across, so if Jen and I and Jason had been there, I would have touched them, depending on how the mood was, right? Appropriately. Um, you know, but that idea is like, if they had their hands on the table and the table wasn't big, reach across, touch the top of their hand. Hey, is trust really important to you? What does that do? I'm gonna, when I get done, I'm gonna hug them if they're the right people, right? Building connection. So anytime I can be face to face with people, and I like that, it's easier to close face to face, and it's just easier to build connection. Luckily, Zoom has allowed us to be more comfortable than we ever were before. But if it was a relo buyer, I'm either doing that presentation when they meet with me, or I'm doing it over the phone on a Zoom before they get here. Because I want to make sure I really understand them, and we built that connection, so we're there more. And all these things that we just did, there's a lot of psychological that's subliminal almost in building trust. And everything that we want is about trust. And when people trust us at a high level and they know we got their back, they give us a lot more grace, right? My wife trusts me at a high level, and she has to give me a lot more grace because I screw up all the time. Joanne knows that. So And that's the truth. I know for many of you on this call that know me personally, I say a lot of stupid shit. I don't mean to, but you know me enough to know my heart that I love you guys and I want you to win. And I try to get better about saying not as stupid as stuff, but I still do. I'm getting better at 60, I think. But when that trust is built high and there's that connection, people have more grace with each other. And they're more likely to follow your leadership. And these are all subtle things, but that meeting right there, you could feel it. Even Jason felt it. Could you see what Jason? Here's a guy that's a real estate agent. And you could see some of the things, wow, I hadn't thought about that. Wow, I didn't know that, right? And he was even connected. Do you think I have a higher level of trust with Jason today as a human than I did even yesterday? Even though it was a simulation, I think I probably have a higher level of trust with all you guys because you were pretending that you were Jason and Jen, weren't you? You were answering the questions in your mind. Think about how subtle that is, guys. Any other comments? I know we're going overboard. Hopefully seems like we've got a lot of people staying and I've got plenty of time here. I've got a little more time before my next appointment, but if anybody else had any other questions or concerns whether they could do it or not.
Hey, John, first off, awesome stuff, man. This is like, I was taking so many notes and I was watching stuff. The main question that I saw come up from people that you have indirectly answered already, I think several times at this point, but I don't know if you want to do a summary statement before we wrap, was just people saying, what if you get pushback? And I think that actually is just a reflection of people's fear about asking for the signature on that document. But yeah. I want to give you the chance to answer for yourself.
So we faced it two places. I've had a lot of tough calls like Eddie being harder, but you see how I kept coming back to showing the value to him? And ultimately, if somebody's not willing to work the way I want to work, and that's why we need to be prospecting enough that we have people, the right people in our funnel. So we need to go and keep asking those questions and coming back to their benefit. Do you see why it's a benefit to them? Do you see why it would work for you? Right. And I didn't say I wasn't going to show them that house. Okay. The other is most people have fear about the buyer broker. And that's why when I had buyer's agents, I could walk them through this and get people to verbally commit, but I made them get them signed because I believed that if I didn't, most of the time they would skip it or they weren't saying it hard enough. I mean, did you hear me actually say like, I'm going to get paid, one way or another. So when we worked in a new construction market, if you go out and sign in without me, you're still going to have to pay me. That's the way it works. Isn't that fair? And then I would come back. Do you see how that's fair? Do you see why you would want to if you were me? So you're always putting it back to them. That's why I love taking them and putting them in the shoes, because when I do that, then they recognize it. They don't, do you hear me how many times I said, you wouldn't want to go to work and know whether you're going to get paid? Could you really operate at your highest level if you were worried about getting paid, Jen? No. Right? And we've all done that, right? Where we're working and we don't know if we're going to get paid. We're so concerned about protecting ourselves. And when we're busy protecting ourselves, we cannot think about the other person and serve them at the highest level. We all know that. What relationships are you in today that you're concerned of whether you can trust that person, whether you're concerned whether they're going to appreciate you? And when that happens, you're not showing up as your full self. And I would rather avoid a client that I can't show up, but we have to have confidence that I can find another client. And trust me, you take somebody through this, Jeff's going to throw it in this will be up for you guys to watch. I recommend you watch. And I'm not saying you have to do it the same way that I tell you, if you do, it works. But take these pieces, apply it to and it's going to be your personality. But don't be scared to say the hard things. Don't be scared to get a no. And what you're going to find is 9 out of 10 times, people are going to sign this. And the one that didn't, you're going to be thankful they didn't. Because you're going to save a lot of time and money.
John, I love it. And it reminds me of something that we talk about a lot, which is sorting versus selling. And there is a sort mechanism here, right? And it's profound. You can still sell within this, but also if people self-select out, those are the good. Has anyone ever had a buyer waste their time, or am I the only one, right? Like, come on. This is getting rid of those people before they waste your time so that you're out 20 minutes, not 20 hours or 20 days of your life, right? John said he closed 54 buyers out of 54 people.
50 out of 54.
50 out of 54, whatever it was. Like, that's an insane ratio. I know agents who will meet, they'll go out and show 50 buyers and close 1 or 2 of them. That's an impossible waste of time. Spend the rest of your time living life instead of working with people who have no intent of working with you. Also, since the industry is changing, you may not have a choice. So this is also showing you a path to get to that signature so that you can actually have clients that are going to work with you on the buyer side of your transaction. So I think that that's super valid. And I will also say, I have seen this firsthand from people who have been proteges of John and from John himself, and have seen this work time and time and time again, where my limiting beliefs got challenged and then eliminated, because I have seen that people want to sign this contract when they understand that it's in their best interest to have a consulting relationship with their agent, not a sales relationship. And that point, by the way, that is the critical, like the make or break thing, I think, in all of this, John, is understanding that when people realize they really want you to be a consultant so that you can tell them the truth, not so you can just sell to them, then they're like, yeah, obviously we want to work together. And that's what this document does.
That's the $1 million piece right there, in my opinion. That's the $1 million piece right there. That piece right there, guys, will make you a lot of money and make your life easier.
All right, crew. Well, thanks everyone for being here. We are going to go ahead and wrap. And it has been an amazing day. Thank you, John Sellers. Thank you, Jason and Jen. Thanks, Eddie, Liz, Joanne, everybody who had comments. You guys are incredible. As always, we're the community. We appreciate all of you being here today and being at eXp Realty, the best real estate brokers on the planet.
Thank you for your support, y'all.